to go from something like this to this, the only step is sanding. The one on the right is directly off of the printer. The one on the left is after 1 hour of sanding. To make the sanding process as easy as possible, I've used my fine cutter, but any triangle sander will do. Try to avoid using rotating sanders, they're just gonna melt the plastic. I start with 60 grit sandpaper to remove the biggest imperfections. Try to avoid smaller sections and be careful around fine details. After the 60 grit, I use 180 grit. Now you can begin to see how your model will turn out. The last sanding step right now is using 320 grit sandpaper. Just keep going until you're satisfied. This right here is what you can achieve. But to take this to the next level, I'm going to use filler primer, wet sanding and my airbrush. I'm using Motif spray putty. It's not magic, but it'll give a professional result. Give it 2 coats with 20 minutes in between. If you have any big imperfections or deep layer lines like I have here on the front of the truck, use a small file or some sandpaper to scratch up the surface. Then use some fine putty to fill the holes and grooves. Let this dry for at least a couple of hours or overnight like I did. Presto and Motif is both products from the same manufacturer. This is very important. If you don't have products from the same manufacturer, do some testing before using it on your model. Now the fun part starts. Wet sanding. I've made this small sanding block. It's very useful when wet sanding. Cut a small piece of sandpaper, stick double-sided tape on the back, then stick it on the back of the sanding block. The files for this is down below. I'm using 500 grit sandpaper. Keep sanding until every surface is flat. Wipe it off and let it dry for at least a couple of hours. If you aren't happy with the surface finish, give it 2 more coats of spray filler and repeat the wet sanding. Here I've used a small V-file to deepen the grooves around the doors. When you are happy with how smooth the surface is, you can start painting. If you're going to use an airbrush, the surface has to be perfect. The coats of paint from an airbrush is so thin that the small scratches and divots will be visible. Before paint, I use a microfiber cloth to remove dust. After that, I use some tape wrapped around my fingers with the sticky side out. This will remove the remaining dust. Now to painting. I'm using metallic silver in my Iwata airbrush. My first airbrush was a cheaper no-name brand, and it will be plenty for a project like this. My advice is to start out with a cheaper model to figure out if you're going to use it enough. Don't spend a lot of money if you're never really going to use it. That being said, I'm really happy with mine. Now that the paint is drying, I can start preparing the bottom part of the truck. I'm using a file and some 320 grit sandpaper to remove the layer lines. After that, I'm wet sanding again. Oh, by the way, the water from all of this wet sanding is not going straight into the drain. I've designed this, the Filtration System 1000. It's just a 3D printer and a coffee filter. I wouldn't drink this water, but it's better than nothing. The files for this is down below. Instead of painting the bottom part, I'll try something I haven't tried before. I'm using my Dremel torch to recolor the plastic after sanding. I think it turned out pretty good. What do you think? I thought I had a great idea when I placed a washer behind the insert. It actually worked pretty well, then I had to remove the washer. Well, you can see the results here. So I used a bolt instead. This worked much better. This should have been a quick redesign so I could place some bearings inside the rims so the wheels would move freely. But it ended up being a project inside a project. It took 11 redesigns, 12 prints, my printer had a little hiccup, to get this working properly. I'm going to shut up now and just show how it works. It started with me having yet another amazing idea. I took some of my girlfriend's nail polish, don't worry, I asked first, and started painting it on the windows. In my head it looked like a shiny, flat window full of rich blackness, but it ended up looking like a dark, wavy sea. So I started wet sanding again, and then I polished the surface. The polished area looked kind of okay. I could not get the edges shiny, so I just sanded it flat again with 800 grit sandpaper. Don't make my mistake, just paint them if you want them shiny. The windows is just held in place with double-sided tape. And the bottom and top part is held together with 4 dabs of hot glue. This is the finished project. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to glue the windows instead of using double-sided tape. The front window has started lifting up in the corners. You can see on the side windows that they aren't that pointy on the front angle. That's because I'm using a 0.6mm nozzle on my printer. This will look a lot better with a 0.4mm nozzle. If you like the video, then hit the like button. If you want to see more of what I'm up to, then subscribe to my channel. You can also check out my other videos.